Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation titled Management Lessons, Paul Levy and the BIDMC. This presentation will provide a brief overview of the merge between the BI and D hospitals under the Care Group umbrella. The result of the merge was the need for strong leadership, and Paul Levy was the man to lead the hospital. The merge of the Beth Israel and Deaconess brought together two Boston hospitals with very different cultures. One offered a warm, caring environment, and one offered a business-like commercial environment. Hostility, mistrust, and bad feelings accumulated from the start with no resolution that caused staff, mostly doctors, to leave the hospital. Loss of volume and poorly executed contracts with insurance companies led to huge annual revenue dips. While the partners merged that took place around the same time as the Care Group merge, different results happened. What happened with Care Group was the decision to force two vastly different cultures to learn to work together without a clear strategic plan. The lack of CEO leadership from the Care Group caused a lot of confusion among their daily operation, so hospital board members overstepped their roles. Leadership at the hospital fought back to change the decisions with no clear path of leadership and communication. Decisions were often not enforced. The hospital was failing. The question was then to be asked, where was the leadership? Those in leadership positions were silent. As stated in the previous slide, there was no enforcement of decisions related to policy. So, for example, if one or two staff complained, then ideas were scrapped in an attempt to appease conflict. Care Group made an attempt to rally leadership with a 3-day retreat. The retreat seemed fruitful, but there was no execution, only silence. The need for real management and leadership was growing apparent as conversations began to take place to sell the hospital as the value was high enough for profit. So who was Paul Levy? Paul Levy served on the Harvard Medical School as an executive dean. He acted as a liaison between the dean, the medical school, and the affiliated hospitals. As time went on during his position, the chairman of the board of the BID requested that Levy participate in the steering committee that would search for the new CEO of the BID in the summer of 2001. Eventually, Levy would present himself to the board as a candidate to become the new CEO. He presented himself with a clear vision on how to save the hospital to prevent the sale. Levy would then be offered the position on January 1st, 2002, and would then step into the role. The issues in this hospital have virtually nothing to do with medicine. They are management and business issues. This statement was made during Paul Levy as he served on the steering committee prior to him stepping into his candidacy as to become the new CEO. First impressions are everything, and that was certainly true for Levy on his first day in the hospital. Prior to coming to work that day, he had already begun behind-the-scenes work that would secure his position and integrity to save the failing hospital from the possible pending sale. Levy stepped into the hospital on January 7, 2002, more than prepared to enact his leadership. He set the tone for credible leadership that would hold staff accountable while achieving a high level of motivation that ensures the high standard for medical care. He did this by sending a welcoming email, yet honest email, to all hospital employees. A key passage from that email includes, "I promise to have an open administration, sharing with you as much information as possible to help you to be a part of solving the problems of the medical center." He went on to say, "We now face our last chance to reverse this problem." That statement was made in reference to the years of failing to address the economic losses at the hospital. Change in an organization, when handled with strong leadership, can ensure the organization moves in the right direction to become successful. In the case of the BID, the exit of the old CEO in the summer of 2001 set the stage for a planned transition of change for the hospital. The Rainey text states on page 405, "Evidence of successful change initiatives in public organizations illustrates the importance of how the members of an organization manage and implement change." The Rainey text offers the explanation of two studies that explain planned change. The first one was Grainer in 1967, which was a study that analyzed 18 major organizational change attempts and drew conclusions about successful change. He emphasized the need for deep involvement of top management, then moves into a more widespread approach for creative solutions. Kuttner, in 1995, took more of a different approach. Kuttner, in 1995, had a little bit of a different approach to analyzing planned change. Kuttner really focused on power sharing, such as assembling a group with enough power to lead the change effort and encouraging the group to work as a team. Kuttner talked a lot about empowerment to act on vision and enforce and remove obstacles. When looking at both of the studies about planned change, it is clear that Levy enacted more of a Kuttner theory of change. He did so by establishing a sense of urgency and creating a vision that encouraged his task force to work as a team to make policy changes. Strategic change. Strategic change sets the organization off in the right direction. When Levy took over his role as CEO, this was the goal that he had to achieve. Part of strategic change means to create a new vision for the organization, orchestrate a new strategic initiative, change the culture of the organization. Levy had to do this by fostering involvement and participation from everybody. This was not happening prior to him stepping into his role. He also needed to take a long view by balancing both short and long-term needs of the organization. Change is never easy, especially when complete chaos has erupted, as when the environment of the hospital before Levy stepped in. The staff of the BID were so used to the uncertainty and the lack of action that they acted as if that was the norm to running an organization. Levy set in to change the culture, but it was hard for the staff to accept that he had a clue on how to run the place. Levy handled the resistance with ease. The Rainey text once again includes the statement, "Change can be costly, troublesome, unfamiliar, threatening, and difficult to understand and accomplish." That was certainly true at the start of the merge between the BI and the D. However, Levy set forth to change that. Levy only had positive intentions of impact upon his start, which was met with resistance. However, he did not back down, but rather he confirmed his decisions. The best leaders inspire teams to rally around change, and Levy certainly did this. Levy accepted the challenge to overcome obstacles that came from resistance. Levy was an extraordinary leader, as defined in the texts of Zahner and Folkman, in their work titled The Extraordinary Leader, Turning Good Managers into Great Leaders. The text focuses on 5 leadership competencies that, after much review, are apparent that Levy had those competencies. Those included character, displaying a high integrity and honesty, personal capability, professional expertise and judgment, the ability to focus on results, establish stretch goals while maintaining high standards, interpersonal skills, communicating powerfully and inspiring, as well as motivating high performance, leading organizational change, develop strategic perspectives while championing change. That is where Levy shined the most. The release of the Hunter report was the first test that Levy faced when it came to explaining his vision to the hospital staff. He had an eureka moment, as he called it, when he decided to make the results public. The findings were startling. There was a loss of $65 million. And it was proposed that 500 to 700 jobs were cut to save the hospital. Levy posted the report on the hospital website that had over 9,000 hits, and then he welcomed feedback in the form of receiving 300 emails in which he responded to each one. As he proposed his strategic plan, he presented it to the staff, who then endorsed it. Communication is key to any successful organization. Leaders need to clearly explain their vision and then welcome feedback that is received. Communication from various sources must be enforced. Everyone, including top management, middle, immediate supervisors, and coworkers, must be involved. Satisfaction of information received is important, which includes follow-up to feedback. There must be a complete wraparound of all communication. Even before Levy stepped into his role, it was clear that no rules were defined. The board was too involved in the daily operation of the hospital. Levy made it clear as part of his hiring that the board would need to decrease in size and then leave daily operational decisions up to him and the staff deemed as required to make those decisions. He instructed staff not to approach the board when frustrated and then to follow proper channels. He told the board not to welcome any staff complaints, but rather to inform him of when this happens. Another way that he enforced roles was he enforced that the chiefs needed to act as managers, not just as specialists in their fields, as the chiefs often saw themselves as glorified professors. He did this by excluding them from steering committees, as they did not belong in the decision-making process, and then he coached them to take ownership of losses in the departments by forcing them to write reports every month. Levy had to create a new culture at the BID. He had to find the balance between two clashing cultures and create a functioning culture that ensured quality of care as well as business-like procedures. Levy fostered such an environment as soon as he stepped foot into the hospital. When he was faced with the decision to lay off 150 people, he started a period of healing to ease fears. He recognized that he had laid off friends, so he gave the staff the chance to grieve. He then spent time talking to each department to show that each one played a vital role in the function of the hospital. He acted as a cheerleader and motivated staff to succeed. Levy really did an excellent job of shifting the culture of the environment from controlled to empowerment. He took the time to encourage management to learn how to fish, rather than giving them the answers to all of their solutions. Conflict is often feared and sometimes avoided because it's scary. Levy did not back down from resistance. Levy did an excellent job on calling out bad behavior several times. One example in such was when he received an email from a disgruntled chief in response to the implementation of the steering committees. The chief spent his email whining about the administrative decisions to be involved in the decision-making process, even though they do not know best. This chief felt that only the chiefs knew best. Levy called him out on the bad behavior, which was clearly an attempt to undercut management. Levy addressed him in what ended up being a public forum with the use of emails, and he actually then started to receive praise from other chiefs who really understood how management functions. The chiefs did not like to feel excluded from the decision-making committees. However, Levy really wanted the doctors to focus on providing the care and then running the new policies and procedures by them and then having them say. The chiefs insisted on doing things the same old way, and they were generally closed out to new thinking, but Levy managed to work around that. The situation with the COO presented the most resistance, but Levy handled that with more of a developmental approach, calling attention to her fatal flaws, but ultimately she ended up leaving her position upon request from Levy. Sometimes leaders need to call out bad behavior with an emotional outburst. Levy did this multiple times, such as the example presented with the chiefs in the email. Levy had the ability to look at the organizational problem and then analyze it, and then put a plan of motion into play. While most of leadership saw problems as medical-based, he knew that was not the issue. He knew the issue was management. He came in with a plan to save the hospital, and when faced with obstacles and resistance along the way, he dealt with it by justifying his decisions with clear logic. He called out bad behavior in a public manner, and also in a subtle manner. He motivated staff and cheerleaded them to success. Levy taught a great lesson on management that anyone who enters any type of leadership position should really take the time to review everything that he has talked about since taking on the role of CEO. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation.